Okay, where are you? Art, y'all ready? Why don't you come on up? Okay, some of our folk weren't here. You were here in October? November? What's that?
Part of Team Newhart.
Yeah, you were here when he ran that race. Hit the 50th state. And so you shared some of the ministry. Why don't you bring the rest of the people who weren't there? Go ahead, bring them up to speed, testimony, and then share some from the Word of God. And if we have time, we're going to do a Q&A.
Okay. Can we pray for Pastor Tuttle first? No, because of that. Yes. Okay, gotcha. Well, Brother Tuttle, it was good to hear your testimony. I know your brother, I think, from Calvary Lansdale. So my name's Art Cunningham. This is my wife, Debbie, back here in the red. And we're out of Trinity Baptist Church in Williston, Vermont, and with GFA to England. On the back table to our right, there's a sign-up sheet if you want to hear from us in emails. And so 1, 2, 3, I want to give a history of what we've done over the years, and then open it for questions, and then go to the Word. So first of all, I was a school teacher in Vermont from 88 to 92. We were part of supporting Dave Schubert, missionary, church planner, and starting a home for troubled boys in Nova Scotia. Our church started to go up and physically help with the logging, building log cabins in the wilderness, 89, 90, 91. And that's how he said, look, we've been praying for a teacher. We believe you're the guy. So from 92 to 94, I worked with this church planting and home for troubled boys in Nova Scotia. And then that closed down. The home didn't close down, but they didn't want a teacher anymore. I came home that summer without a real clear idea of where I was going. I never was someone who was wanting to go to Europe or that area. But as we were praying, there was a need for a teacher to come for 1 year in the September of 94. 30 years later, we're still there. So I went as a school teacher with this church in Slough, worked with them for 3 years. So that first part of what we're doing was a school teacher and helping in a church planting ministry. Then in 97, I got married. We had children, twin boys in 98, and then we were on deputation for 3.5 years, taking us up into 2001, back to England, where we were helping a church, the church in Slough and the church in Birmingham, working with Joseph Abraham, a converted Muslim out of Egypt, and starting to get a burden for ministry to the Muslims. Back again in 2007 for a second term in England, and then from 2012 to 2018, we attempted to plant a church in Blackburn near to Manchester. We tried that for 6 years and closed that work, came back and seeking the Lord's will. 2020 to 2024, we are working as an evangelist out of Christ Church, Bradford in Yorkshire. So before we go to the Word, any questions from you folks? We've been here once in 2019 and then in October, a very quick time to just show the video.
Gospel.
Yeah, total freedom. Like we are in a situation, GFA has a summer intern program where we send our guys to Morocco to work with a Muslim country, but they've been sending them to England where we're freely able to witness to the Muslims. There are not, like Brother Tuttle is saying, there have been restrictions on praying in public, giving a witness about the issues, homosexual rights and so on. People ask the questions, they've been arrested. But it's total freedom like it is here in the States. You find the police, sometimes rogue, but we have freedom to preach in the squares and to share the gospel in the parks. So complete freedom.
Are you targeting a lot of the Muslim community?
We are. We're going, so it's not that every place in England is highly Islamic, but we've chosen those places to go. Bradford for Europe is the highest percentage Muslim of any European city, about 31%. So both in Slough, in Birmingham, in Bradford where we are now, and in Blackburn, those are places that we chose or the Lord directed us because high density Muslims. But total freedom. no restrictions. We've been harassed by the police once in Birmingham, threatened with arrest, but not arrested. The police came back afterwards and said, not exactly, we were hoping they would apologize, but they said there is no such thing as a no-go area anywhere in England. You're free to go and share the gospel.
You're sharing the word with these Muslim folk. Are they militant, Orthodox, or just Muslim in name? How do they typically respond to you?
So the Muslims are generally looking to give a witness themselves. They're very evangelistic, so they're ready to engage, and we find that they're very open that way. And in their homes, they'll bring you in. We haven't seen them got saved like what we're talking about, half a village turning to Islam, but the open door is really there. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Kim. Yeah, so we haven't seen that many people that have come to Christ. One guy in Birmingham who we witnessed to, he was living away in Nottingham. He got saved and baptized. I'm not sure what the pressure he faces. In Bradford, where we are now, there's a guy, he didn't come to Christ through us, a Muslim man, and I think he's rejected by the community, but as far as I know, no beatings or anything like that. And Joseph, the guy that I worked with, Joseph Abraham in Birmingham, he felt the pressure to leave Egypt because of being an outsider, but never, as far as I know, any physical violence. Yes, sir. No, Church of England, so there is within the Church of England an evangelical branch, and we have worked not with them, but they carry on a similar ministry in, I don't know about in Bradford, but in Blackburn there were 3 churches that were Bible preaching churches, Church of England. So their opposition is a theological opposition, but as far as, they never try to hinder us in what we're doing. They come and so back when we were church planting, there was a local Church of England pastor. He came and he was kind of asking me where I stand on the issue. Is it like, where do you stand on the continuation of the gifts? I said, we believe that as the Bible promised, that those gifts were going to end in the apostolic times. And he goes, he says, I've never met a cessationist before, but very much favorable to us in that we're doing the same thing. That's not most of the Church of England. It's just a very small percentage. But there are Church of England evangelicals that are Bible preaching. A minority, but there are some. Okay, well, let's go to the Word. Romans chapter 10. Through this passage, Paul talks about his desire for Israel, and we're just going to flip it around for Islam or for the Muslims. So we've been doing this work 30 years. I've been there. Bob Rutledge, who I worked with in Slough, 25 years. Joseph Abraham in Birmingham, 25 years. And Debbie has been there since 2001, so 23 years. 103 years we have been there. And this idea of the Muslims really turning to Christ, we've not seen that. We've desired it and have not seen it. So this time we've come back really asking the churches to pray that we could make that next level. I was glad to hear of the fella who saw that happen somewhere where we won't mention where it is. But we haven't seen that. So we're asking people to pray that we reach that next level. In chapter 10, verse 1, 2, and 3, it says, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them a record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. For they, being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves under the righteousness of God. How do you get that? In other words, how do you get where your heart's desire and prayer to God for Islam, for the Muslims, is that they would be saved. Because I never had a desire, to work with the Muslims or to go to a Muslim country. I went to England as a school teacher, and if you're someone who loves to go out and witness, knock on doors or whatever, a lot of times the response you get is not that favorable. People sometimes are willing to talk, a lot of times they just close the door. They're not interested mostly. And then, so that was my experience here in America, mostly in Canada the same. And then in '94, came to England working with Bob Rutledge and Slough and Joseph Abraham, the converted Muslim who went to Birmingham. And we would go sometimes knock on the door, and here the guy comes out. You say, I'm from the church. I'm here to give a witness about Jesus. And somehow he's engaging you, and his son or his brother comes out, or the uncle comes out. And sometimes the whole street would be out and trying to engage you, like with Jesus. They were coming with the hard questions, and they would always pressing you on what you know about the Bible. Hasn't the Bible been changed? Isn't it true that Muhammad is more the prophet that's like Moses than Jesus is? And you're always trying to come up with an answer. And I can remember, go back, and my heart was pounding from being forced back onto the Bible. Not people closing the door and saying, I'm not interested, really interested, but always trying to push you back. Do you know how to answer them? Given an answer for the reason that we have. And I would go home, my heart thumping, and lay in bed at night saying, this is amazing. These are the people that really want to engage. They believe in dawah, like giving out a teaching, and they're winning people to Islam. They say, and they're proud about it, that it's the fastest growing religion in the world, and that's true. And people say, well, that's because high birth rates, which is true. And in our countries, by immigration, which is true. But what you also see where the Muslims are is they're winning people that are atheists or that grow up in nominal religion. My nephew got married this year. He became a Muslim to marry a Muslim girl. And I don't have that many nephews and nieces. I think about 20, so 5%. And we see this in England. You think, oh, it wouldn't appeal to the ladies because Islam it says women are deficient mentally. A man can hit his wife and send her to her room. You think it wouldn't appeal to the women, but young women are also coming and joining Islam. So they're engaging. And so this is how I came, not because I had a desire or a burden for the Muslims, just coming to help in the ministry, but by working with them and engaging with them, and their desire to take you back to the Bible and try to confound you really put it in my heart to keep on going with them. And so we can say this one, my heart's desire and prayer for the Muslims is that they would be saved. I'm thankful, and we're thankful throughout our ministry for the open door, which we have. Give a witness, give literature, sometimes give a Bible, but that next step. So Paul says here, he says, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they would be saved, to see the Muslims saved, baptized, and going on for the Lord. That's what we haven't seen, and that's what we need to see. Debbie was talking today on the way here. She's listening to this audio book, and the lady that wrote it, Esther Ahmed, she's saying what a zeal that they had. She was going herself as a suicide bomber when she was converted. She was preparing herself to do that. Why do people do that? I mean, they have this tremendous zeal. As he says here, they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. You see what they're doing. Like, how many people here within our congregation fast? Even though the Bible does teach us to fast, right? He says, why don't your disciples fast? He says, well, I'm here. They're not going to fast while I'm here, but when I'm gone, they'll fast for the kingdom of God. So my question is, what I find is there are very few Christians that fast, and yet in Islam, most of the people partake of this fasting in Ramadan, going from sunup to sundown without food. We make fun of that because the truth is they're getting up early and having a meal, and they're having a meal late, but they're going 12 hours on average with no food 30 days in a row. It's a huge commitment. It's zeal. the zeal of God, not according to knowledge. The Bible doesn't teach us to do that for righteousness, and Islam teaches, a balancing of the good works and the bad works. There's a good angel and a bad angel, weighing out your works, whichever is more weighty, that's what you'll do in the end. But there's this tremendous zeal that they have, not according to knowledge. And so this is our desire, is to see the Muslims not only open door, give the gospel. We're promising you we'll do that. But it's to see them make that next step, to see them actually turn from Islam, from Muhammad, from the Quran to God and to Jesus Christ, and to be discipled in the church. That's our desire. That's what we're coming back. If you remember the video presentation back in October, we said the first thing we decided when we were preparing for this period of time was, should we retire? We were old enough to retire. Lord didn't direct us that way. We felt confident about that. But then it was, well, what about a ministry where there's a bigger response than there is to Islam? We hadn't found that response, and yet the Lord clearly directed us back here to Bradford, to the work with the Muslims. So therefore, our desire we're laying in front of you is to see them make that next step. Romans 10:1, our heart's desire and prayer to God for Islam, for the Muslims, is that they would be saved. We're thankful for the open door. We're thankful for the opportunity to be able to witness to them in an open way and in a receptive way. I mean, like we, if you remember, we go around on a Thursday in this park, which is an area that's 75, 80% Muslim. One time, Andy and I, we went out the very first 5 minutes or so. This lady, Sima, she started talking to us, and then she said, "Oh, can you walk with me? I came here to get my steps in." And so for almost an hour and a half, an hour and 25 minutes, we shared the gospel with her. In the end, we gave her a Bible to read and so on. I thank God for the open door. Don't get me wrong. I'm very thankful for that. But the next step, Romans 10:1 says, is that they'd be saved and added to the church, going on and perhaps going on to reach their own people and to pastor churches where they're reaching other Muslims. Is there warrant in the scriptures to pray this way? And I want to say very clearly, yes. I just want to take you through some of the scriptures in the New Testament. And I just chose out 5 passages just to read them to you. But each one has this stunning promise of answers. So we get this idea about praying, and sometimes we can divorce it from the idea that we're really asking God to do something and to see powerful answers in this way. But it's always very much a part of what Jesus is teaching, what John is teaching, and what Paul is teaching, is that we're moving the hand of God with our prayers. So in Matthew 7:7, Sermon on the Mount, famous passage, he says, "Knock, ask, seek. Ask, and you shall receive. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened to you." And it says, "For everyone who asks receives, and he that seeks finds, and to him that knocks it will be opened." Clearly tied to this idea of asking is the idea that God will answer in a powerful way. Matthew 21:22. "All things whatsoever you will ask in prayer, believing, you shall receive." John 14:13. John 14:12, he says, "The works that you do, that I do, you will do, and greater works than I do, you will do, because I go to the Father." This is a passage that really impacted missionaries in China in the early 1900s. And the next verse says, "And whatsoever you'll ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it." John 15:7, same page. "If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you." In 1 John, or 1 John, chapter 5, verse 14 and 15. "And this is the confidence that we have in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he heareth us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we desired of him. So everyone who asks, receive, Matthew 7, verse 8. All things whatsoever, Matthew 21:22. Whatsoever you ask, John 14:13. If you ask anything, it will be done, John 14:14. Ask what you will, John 15:7. 1 John 5:14. If we ask anything according to his will, and verse 15, whatsoever we ask. These are huge and open promises. We see a total possibility here if we're praying in that way, praying through. So our invitation then is to pray for these ministries that we're involved in and to see the Lord break through. So there are 4 outreaches that we have. I could give you the times that they are in England, but I'm going to give them to you in Pennsylvania time. The Hot Potato, which is our outreach to the elderly in our neighborhood, starts at 6 o'clock in the morning Pennsylvania time on Tuesday and goes until 9 o'clock. We're offering a lunch or snacks to the people that live in the neighborhood, and then a very short gospel challenge, often having 12 to 14 lost people there. One-way club in the evening, a ministry mostly to lost children in the neighborhood, from 1:15 on Tuesday afternoon to 3 o'clock Tuesday afternoon, Pennsylvania time. Thursday, Lister Park. This is in the morning, our time, but it will be 6 o'clock in the morning, Pennsylvania time, to 7:30 a.m. And then on Saturday, the outreach to the town center, our 12 noon, 7 o'clock in the morning to 8:30 a.m. Our desire is to see a real breakthrough. We believe it can happen. We're asking you to pray with us that it would happen. Pastor. Yes, sir.
That we'll have opportunity for you to be able to introduce yourself, visit, spend some time with those folk. We're going to say goodbye to you who are on live stream and invite you to join us on Wednesday for our Bible study. So adios to you people.